You want this in shot, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, it's
Actually,
fine.
that's okay.
It's fine. It's fine.
I can have it. There you go. Okay, fine.
Attention to details.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. I mean, you've done a lot of podcasts as well.
I've done a few. I say no to 90%.
Oh, wow.
I get asked 10 a week.
Wow. Okay.
And we say no. And then every now and then we're like, this guy seems cool.
Okay.
So this seems cool. So yeah, we say no to nearly every single one.
But mainly you also say no to the people who wants to buy your art as well.
I do. You've read up.
Yes.
You're right.
Which is something unique, special, and different. And you're very picky or very like. What's the reason?
Thank you. It's because basically, I don't paint because I want to. I paint because I have to. I don't always love painting. Okay. I have to paint. It is my calling. It is, if I don't paint, I am a very difficult person. Like really difficult to be around, to be with. It's my only way I can connect to the world where the world makes sense, is when I'm painting. And I'm overly visually stimulated. I'm overly emotionally stimulated. I have synesthesia. So all this stuff inside, if it's not coming out on canvas, I'm a very difficult human being. And I can't make sense of humanity, of people, unless I'm painting, because that's how I connect with people, through energy. So if I'm going to devote my life to this, which I am, so I've been painting now 30 years. The first painting was 1996. So, okay, next year it'll be 30 years. That's a long time. And I hope to be painting till I'm 98. So another 50 years. Now with that journey, you're going to make a lot of sacrifices. A lot of things are going to, suffer, and a lot of things are going to fall off. And if you're going to dedicate your life to something that extreme, you've got to make sure it's worth it. We're here once, right? And there's a lot of other things I could be doing. So if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it properly. I'm going to give it my heart, my soul, everything I have. I'm going to constantly question my integrity, my intention, why I'm doing it, what I'm doing, how good what I'm doing is, and constantly, questioning it. And I'm also going to be very strict about who buys my work, because my work is my legacy. It's part of my soul. I literally pour my soul into painting. That's why I only do 12 paintings, take me 2 years. I only do 12 paintings every 2 years. That's a collection. Most artists are doing 50, 60, 80 pieces a year, 160 every 2 years. And then you've got guys that are just churning them out. I'm only doing 12 paintings in 2 years. That's very little. So a lot goes into each one. And it's part of my soul, fragmented around the world. And I don't want that piece to be with some idiot. You know what I mean?
Yes,
some brash idiot who has no conscience, no integrity, no intention, no understanding of the work, and isn't connected with it emotionally, and just has lots of money to show off. That I'm not interested in. So,
but have you, let's say, speaking of that, how much emotionally you get connected to the pieces, have you felt like, okay, this piece I don't want to sell, I still have emotions, I still have connection with, that you don't want to let it go?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say about 30%. So I'm only making 12 pieces every 2 years. That's a collection. Out of those 12, I'll only make 8 or 9 available. So I'll immediately pick 3, sometimes 4, that are not for sale. And they'll become part of the private collection. And that's for 2 reasons. One, because of what you just said. I want it. It's part of me. I don't want it to go. And the other reason actually is quite a good practical reason, which is useful for artists to know, is that you want to hang on to some of your work, because your work goes up in value. It goes to auction and people are going to make a lot of money out of you. And you're not going to own any of these pieces from the years before. It seems wrong that you can't also benefit. You know what I mean? So it's 2 reasons. It's one, so I can create longevity in my career, which is important to me. I want to paint till I'm dead. And the other is because it's part of me, I can't let it go.
Yes. But how do you expect people or to understand also, or to connect with with your painting, and what kind of people would understand that? I know we all have a connection to art because it's related to them. Which kind of people will relate to your art?
Okay, I mean, that's actually an interesting question because, I can answer that in a few different ways. Firstly, not everyone is going to connect to my work. Secondly, the people that connect to my work are not going to connect with every single piece. No way. And there's a very specific reason for that, I would say. So my work, let me answer it like this. I believe that we're made of energy. The most powerful, most poignant way that we communicate as human beings is through energy. It's not through words, language, even body language. It's through energy. But the energy that we emit is made up of our intentions. When our intentions become questionable, agenda-driven, ego-driven, financially driven, socially driven, we emit static. Like, energy can't transmit through static. Hence the breakdown of humanity, in simple terms. Now, I sort of felt this a while ago, and then I felt, okay, this is what I want to focus on. I want to focus on my intentions so I can lay paint with pure intention, so it can vibrate at a higher frequency, so it can connect with the soul. So in answer to your question, who connects with my work? I think it's people that are very conscious, that have a very open heart, and that are able to surrender. Because the thing that I find is the most important thing we can do as human beings is to disengage the brain, surrender, and engage the heart or the soul, and connect with art in any form through the soul. And I hope my work acts like an electric shock to the viewer. So when you see it, some electric shock happens and it disconnects your brain immediately because of the energy it's giving off. And that energy will then connect with you on a very emotional level. And the idea is you won't connect with every piece, but when you do, you're going to feel very emotional and you're going to really feel something that you were not expecting. And you won't be able to describe it or explain it, but you'll feel it. That's what my work is all about. And when it happens, it's so beautiful. And I only really sell my work to people that stand in front of it and break down and either like cry or visibly moved or are really taken aback by that energy they felt and how it's connected with something inside them. And I find that the other role I really want my work to play is I want it to, we as adults, the greatest gift we're ever given is our childhood. And yet it's the first thing we're taught or encouraged to move on from. You know, you grow up, you're becoming an adult now. We're encouraged to move away from our childhood. And I think that actually, in reality, we as adults should focus everything we've got on keeping the child alive inside us. That's our magic. That's our essence. That's our beauty. And I hope my work has this ability to connect you as the viewer, as an adult, with your child. Remind you of that beauty. Strip away all the BS. Strip away the nonsense. Strip away all the stuff that we've filled our heads with. Disengage the brain and engage the purity of the soul, but the child's soul inside us. If it does that, I'm so happy. And that's why I'll paint forever, because that's very difficult to achieve. And I'm always striving for that. And when people connect with it, it's a really beautiful thing, you know? It's people that aren't overthinking. It's people that are feeling. And the thing I noticed that was really cool was my work, you don't walk in my studio or the gallery or a museum and go up to my work and look at it. You walk past it and you feel something. It comes off the wall at you because of this pure intention it's laid with, this vibration it's creating and the way it connects with you. And I love that. It's like a piece of music. You don't sit in a concert hall and hear a piece of music and go, oh, it's interesting, C sharp, D major, D flat. You don't analyze it. You feel it. You sit there and you feel it. And that for me is how the visual art should work.
I mean, you portrayed it in an amazing way because you said, I mean, you connected, okay, how to connect to these vibes, to these emotions. And the only thing to connect to these waves is actually to remove all the obstacles that distracts you around on a daily life.
Yeah.
And the purest form of that is the childhood, because they are the least attracted to physical things.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be a physical thing, but all the meaning that they want from that physical thing is the joy and happy and to discover life. So they don't see the form of shapes or whatever physical around them as something that is functional.
Yeah.
They see it as emotional.
And they don't have a gender.
And they don't have any, so it's they are very pure.
Yeah. There's an amazing thing actually. If you take 5 children, 7 children, let's say, under the age of 5. After 5, it's too late. But if you take 7 children under the age of 5, of any color, religious background, social background, financial background, and you put them in a sandpit, they will only ask each other 2 questions. They'll look at the other person. They won't say this out loud, but subconsciously they will be asking this question when they look at that child. Are you kind? Will you play with me? That's it. Imagine if the adult did that. Imagine if we looked at each other and said, are you kind? Okay, let's talk. But we don't.
Yes.
We're like, what can I get out of you? What
yes.
And the child doesn't do that. So that's what I really want my work to be about. That's something worth giving up your life for finding that and being able to visualize that for others to connect with their child. And that's what my work's all about.
In a purest form. The art needs to vibrate all these messages and get you to that state of mind, and so you can feel who you are as a child. What are your sense? What's your real intentions? Because we only need love, we only need connection, we need pure emotions, and the art.
We only need love. That's it.
That's it.
That's all we're here for. Everything else is a distraction.
But now after you said that, because I've seen your painting, I want to visit and see it physically. I must see it. But now it makes sense to me, as also because it if we say in a painting should be like not distracted, like filtered out of any functional, any physical even thing, then I can see the visual, I can see the purity of that messages, and that's why maybe the classical painting, does the classical painting portray that? Because it has a meaning, it has a story.
It can. Painting is all about, people overcomplicate it because they have to try and give it value, right? So they have to create stories around artwork so that they can create value, because intrinsically it has no value. It's, very limited value. So there's a lot of nonsense in the art world. There's a lot of smoke and mirrors. It's as simple as this. Real creation comes from a place of surrender. We as human beings, we're so limited. We've done some amazing things. Some of us are pretty cool, but we're limited. We live in an incredibly powerful universe, and we are incredibly powerful beings, but only when we surrender and connect with something up there, something far more powerful than us. And true creation can only come from that place. Everything else is something slightly different. If you do find a way to fully surrender, connect with something, some call it universal consciousness, some call it God, some will call it Allah, some will call it a being, a powerful being beyond them. Whatever it is, you feel it when you surrender, only when you surrender. And then something incredible can happen through creation. And then the only other thing that matters is the intentions with which you create it. Other than that, if it has those 2 elements, art can be seen, felt, and found in any form. And the classical works, some of them absolutely do that. Degas, Toulouse-Lautrec, Da Vinci, Michelangelo, and then later de Kooning, Gorky, Basquiat. But then going further back, you've got guys like Raphael, you've got Rembrandt, you've got Della Francesco, and these guys painted through surrender, through intention, and they made the paint vibrate, and it's incredible. Van Gogh, you look at the work of Van Gogh, I mean, my gosh, you know, that guy poured his soul into that paint.
But that's it. So the intentions are different. I mean, when you mentioned all these artists,
their intentions are different, but they're pure. They're not coming from agenda. They're not forcing it.
Or it could be, and it would become a story. I mean, Leonardo da Vinci with the Mona Lisa. Maybe the intention was love, but
I mean, the Mona Lisa. I mean, one of the most average works of art ever created.
But it's the intention. I mean, the story of it. Like he fell in love, and he kept like painting for many months.
Yeah.
Because he don't want to leave he don't want to stop looking at the girl.
Yeah, true. But if we're talking about that, if you look at the cartoons, they call them cartoons of Da Vinci, which is his drawings, his sketches, his anatomical work. That is magical. That is, for me, Mona Lisa is very one-dimensional, but some of his work was phenomenal. But I think it is about the intention. It is about connecting with something greater than you, which Da Vinci certainly did. I mean, my God, you can feel it. And yes, the classical painters, the old masters, they certainly, some of them were doing that and were able to achieve that emotional connection. And it's just beautiful. You can see it through the centuries of creation, and not often, but when it happens, it's so inspiring.
But if we have to say that their intention was either love or history, or maybe for the king or for God, I mean, like the Chapelle 16, the painting of Leonardo da Vinci, it was all for the church,
a lot of papal commissions. Absolutely.
And then, okay, what will be the pure intention if it's not?
So, what I mean, I understand
for the king or for the god.
Yeah, I understand your question, and I think it's important because it means I can clarify it slightly. In that, when I say intention, I mean that your intentions are pure. So if you've been given a commission from the Pope, a papal commission, to create a religious painting, and the Pope comes to you and says, Michelangelo or Da Vinci, I would love you to paint this ceiling for me. I'll pay you X, and it will be in this chapel, and it will be shared and seen by millions of people, and we feel you're a great artist. There's nothing wrong with taking on that commission and having pure intention. It's very achievable, right? It's not about the intentions in the mind. It's about the intentions that you completely embody with your being. Now, by that I mean, it's how you lay that paint, and it's why you're laying that paint. And if you were paid to create the work, that's quickly forgotten. If you're a real artist, as soon as that brush goes in that paint, you can either lay it with pure intention, where your whole body is emptied, surrendered, and connected to something greater than us. That's what I mean by purifying your intention.
Okay.
It's surrender, and it's connecting to something. And you feel it from your heart, through your arm, through your finger, into the brush, into the paint, onto the canvas. You feel it, and you know when you're painting with pure intention, and you know when you're not. And when you are, the paint will vibrate at a higher frequency. Something amazing happens, but it's rare, especially in this age.
What do you do to keep that, to reach to that state of mind?
Well, that's another great question. You constantly have to question yourself. I mean, for me, I call it living a life of grace. Grace has become a slightly Christian terminology, but I don't mean it in a Christian sense. I mean it in the word and its meaning. Living a life of grace, I think, means living with love, empathy, compassion, respect, and having that sort of sense of others, and just living by those codes. And when I do, my paintings are much better. I'm living with this beautiful intention. I'm living in intention. I'm surrendering, and my work is beautiful. But I have to constantly question myself, question my intention, say, why am I doing this? What did I say to that person? Why did I say that? Should I have said that? that painting I created, did I believe in it? What was that mark? All of these things, I didn't help that person on the street. Why didn't I? I should have done. I've got to go and find them. Let me help that guy out. It's constantly thinking, you know what I mean? Like, how can I do that? And we fall out of it a lot. It's really hard to sustain. I think you have to just constantly question yourself. And I think the one thing that I try and do to have as a constant, something my dad taught me when I was young, treat every man and woman the same. Now, we think we do that. It sounds simple. But what I mean is, treat the king of the country and the janitor in the loo, the guy that sweeps the streets, with exactly the same love and respect. Very few people do that. And I think if you do that, everything changes. If you treat the taxi driver, the guy who's sweeping the street, the guy who's looking after the toilet in the mall, you treat him, you look him in the eye, you give him the same respect that you would give the leader of the country. No different. Why does he deserve more or less? Why does the leader of the country deserve more or less? We're all deserved of the same love and respect. And I think if you can do that, that helps you stay in that place of intention. So that's what I try and do as often as I can.
That's beautiful. And you've done a lot of charity work, and also having, like, doing collaboration with some what do you call them?
People?
With some people, of course. I mean, that's the right term. How much it gives you joy also, and how much, when did you realize and understand that giving is a joy? Giving is something that it can be more beautiful than even taking.
It's a really interesting one, that I think, because I've been on a very long charitable journey. I think I started probably when I was 18, was my first big sort of charitable event where I created a collection of 12 paintings. And
that's very young.
Yeah, very young, right? I'm 47 now. So, I mean, we're talking 30 years of a charitable journey. I think there's a lot you learn on that journey. You learn that the worst type of people and the best type of people work in charity. That's a nasty lesson to learn. It's sad. It's really sad when you see a lot of these institutions, these entities, these charitable entities, these foundations, and you find that a lot of the people that are running them, working within them, are not the people you want them to be. That's really upsetting and very disappointing. But then at the same time, you find the most amazing people in charity. And then you learn something, I think, and you learn that if you're doing charitable work for selfless, altruistic reasons, it's not sustainable and it won't work. And that's a weird thing to learn. And it's contradictory to what everyone tells us. But in reality, if you're saying to yourself, and you're being a bit more honest with yourself, and you're saying, okay, I have found out that when I'm working with children, when I'm visiting refugee camps, when I'm connecting with terminally ill people in hospital, when I'm working with mentally ill children, people with mental health issues, terminal cancer patients, I am getting something from them that is so valuable to me as an artist. And my work becomes so much better and more meaningful and more poignant in our world. And my legacy becomes more powerful. Then I'm going to keep doing it. And as I keep doing it, I'm going to help more people and I'm going to continue on that journey. But I'm going to really help people because I really want to. I'm not going to do it because it's good to be seen to be being charitable, or it's a good way to get payback from God later, or it's what you should do, tick the box. I'm doing it because it's going to help me. Well, then it's sustainable. Then I can do that forever. And I actually created a model which was very interesting because I realized I want to be doing charitable work forever. I don't want to be doing it when it's convenient, when it suits me. I want to do it forever because I really want to go on that journey. It's the most beautiful giving journey. But I think you only realize that when you're honest with yourself.
Yes, exactly. And
You
after
know?
some time and after experience, you
Yes.
realize how joyful it is.
Exactly. And the amount it gives you back is far more than you ever
Exactly.
give. And it's an amazing, amazing thing. And I actually created a new model in the art world, which at first people were like, what the hell are you doing? You know, what is this? And now a lot of people are adopting it. And it was about 15 years ago where I was working with galleries and I decided I'm not going to sign with galleries anymore. Full signature to you, only you, this gallery. Because there's a problem with that. They control your journey. They control your path. They control everything you put out. You only get one big show a year. You can't paint when you want. You can't show when you want. You know, it's very restricting. The gallery take 50%. And then I thought, what if I build my own clients, my own collectors, my own relationships that are mine? Okay, it's going to be a lot harder. It's going to take a lot more work, but it's going to be more meaningful, more sustainable. And if I do that, and then instead of partnering with a gallery and giving them 50%, I'm going to partner with a charity and I'm going to give them 80%. And I'm going to have 20% because that's all I need. That's all I need to be able to have enough money to keep painting, because I see money buys me time, right? Money allows me to paint without having to worry about how I pay the next bill. And that's really what it's about. It buys me time. So that model then, after, I don't know how long I've done it now, 20 years, I guess, 15, 20 years, I've raised a huge amount of money. But I've created this sustainable structure that I believe in. And I've grown my client base, if you see what I mean. So it's a beautiful journey to go on, but it's a much harder route. But luckily it's worked.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, but of course it worked. I mean, you're the highest paid artist.
I think I'm a second.
You're the second. That's great. From the youngest, I would say.
From the youngest, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And was it a surprise for you, like selling your art in $65 billion?
I think everything is a surprise to me.
Of course. I mean, it's a shock to everybody.
Literally, man.
How did you deal with this?
Everything's a surprise to me. I mean, I paint, and every now and then I'm surprised because what I produce is beautiful. I paint from a meditative state, so I have no clue what I'm creating. I'm in a trance. My brainwaves go into theta, and I'm in a trance. You could punch me in the face while I'm painting. I wouldn't know it had happened. So I'm not aware of what I'm creating. And I'm constantly surprised when I see something. I said it the other day. I created something. I was like, wow, it's beautiful.
I haven't seen this before.
No, I hadn't seen it. It's like, Mike, this is beautiful. And I'm surprised that it's beautiful, because I'm like, how does that come out of me? I don't know. And every now and then I feel that it works like this. I feel that you have to realize, and it's taken me a long time to realize this, but you have to realize all you're doing is borrowing a moment. Firstly, it's only a moment. And secondly, you're just borrowing it. And if you focus on living a life of grace and focus on how you live your life, not on what you make, not on what you create, but how you live your life, then every now and then you'll borrow a moment. Something magical will happen. And then you give that back, because it's not yours. You've tapped into something and you've borrowed something. You give that back with grace and gratitude, and you say thank you. And then that moment will keep coming. Not all the time, but every now and then it'll keep coming. As soon as you engage the ego and you forget that firstly, it's just a moment, so insignificant. It's a moment. And secondly, you've borrowed it. As soon as you forget that, you engage the ego, those moments don't come again.
Yeah, they disappear and run away.
Right.
But it's very hard not to engage the ego. I mean, especially hard, also we love also like compliments. We love to see our attention of people, our success, our work, our even feelings, and because you're now expressing yourself. So if somebody's listening to you, it's something, it means to you. So also you might seek attention. You might seek, where my art is actually affecting, who's listening, who's watching. Because you mentioned about I'm saying listening for painting, because you listen to your painting and you hear the colors, which is a weird expression, but I love it. But it's hard to disengage the ego or to put it down. How do you deal with that after all your success and
It's
all?
really hard because in one way it's impossible to disengage the ego because we can't exist. But the way I disengage the ego is firstly to be really honest about it. As a young man, let's say, I was a complete idiot, like most of us, right? It takes us, I think takes men 40, 45 years, do you know, to work it out. And we finally get there and we're 45 and we're like, oh, man, I used to be much better looking. I used to be able to run fast and lift and anyway, so it takes us a long time to work it out. But when we finally work it out, it's a beautiful thing, I think. It's a really beautiful thing. But no man works it out before 45. If they tell you they've worked it out at 35, 38, 40, nonsense. It's a time thing. And I think it's taken me a very long time to be able to disengage the ego completely. But I think I can. And I know I can when I'm painting. Because when I'm painting, if my ego is engaged remotely, I'm a very weird painter. And I don't mean this in an egotistical way. I paint from an incredibly pure place. And if I've got any impurity, like I can never drink alcohol, I can never have a cigarette. If I'm painting, I have to be so pure. And if I'm engaging the ego, which I see something as very impure, what I produce is rubbish. It's one-dimensional. I look at it afterwards, I'm like, rubbish. And so that's what drives me. I'm more interested in my work that I get to see than anything else, really. And if that's going to suffer, I'm going to make sure I disengage the ego.
Some artists, they might use, you said you don't drink while you're painting. Some artists will use maybe drinking or having mushrooms or DMT,
all sorts of things,
stuff like that, which helps them.
Toulouse-Lautrec used to have go on trips and all sorts.
Yes, and disengage. And they might go to places and bring art from that place.
Sure.
What do you say about that?
I mean, I don't want to criticize that because, never judge. But I certainly couldn't create like that. I tried it when I was 18, 19. And I created some cool stuff, but quite one-dimensional stuff compared to what I can create from that incredibly pure place. And I think it's because I found that if you are connecting through any mind-altering substance, and you're connecting because of that, I think you're connecting to a certain place that for me is not as interesting and not as powerful. I think the most powerful place you can connect to is by completely surrendering to that amazing power of our universe without any mind-altering substance, without anything to help you get there, but through focusing so hard on living that life of intention, of grace. And you're getting there by living that life of grace and intention. If you're getting there because you're taking some substance, it's a bit of a cheat. It's a bit of a shortcut. And I don't think it has that same depth to it.
And it might not be yours. It might not be your thoughts or what you are true feelings.
Right. I think the journey, I think that's a great point. I think, you can get there, sure. And what you produce could be pretty cool. But I think we go on it as real artists, creators, we go on a very long journey. It's a 60, 70-year journey. You can't sustain that journey by taking mind-altering substances. You're not going to go on this true journey of clarity, enlightenment. You know what I'm saying? So that's the interesting part.
Yeah. Sacha, tell me, how was your childhood? I mean, how did you become an artist, and when did you realize that you want to express all these feelings, all these emotions into a form of art?
So my childhood was messy. I was basically, it was amazing, right? Like full of love. And I'm very lucky. Messy because of me, not because of anyone else. But I was I was heavily dyslexic, like chronic. I had OCD, ADHD. Okay, fine, most people do. But I have synesthesia, when you combine all those things, I was this incredibly frustrated child because I could see the answer. I could visualize what something looked like, but I couldn't explain it. Mm-hmm. I couldn't get there. I couldn't describe it. I couldn't get from A to B, but I knew what B looked like. And that's really frustrating. Mm. So they did these tests on me because I was really weird, right? I couldn't make sense of the world. I couldn't make sense of human emotion. I have a very different relationship with emotion because of my synesthesia. So I couldn't make sense of human emotion. I was like, I can't make sense of this world. And the only way I could was when I was painting. So they did these tests and there was real problems at school. It was like, this guy, what do we do, right? And they did an IQ test that was fascinating where you have two IQs. You have your, I forgot what they call them, but in basic terms, you have your EIQ, I think they call it, which
emotional intelligence.
Yeah, okay. So you have your normal IQ, which is the sort of reasoning, the normal IQ test that you know. Mm-hmm. And then you have your emotional IQ, let's call it, right? Yeah. And the graph is like this. And the normal IQ, they couldn't plot on the graph because it was too low. There was no place for it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I was too low. I was like, let's do it like this. I was down here. And the emotional IQ, I was so high they couldn't plot it. So Mensa was, I think, 155 something, and I was at 180 something. They had no place to plot it. And I was young, right? And they were like, you shouldn't be able to exist in this world because your brain is like this and it can't connect. It's like, you know? Mm-hmm. So anyway, that's how I lived my childhood. Like fully frustrated, fully like, what on earth's going on? But then I had amazing parents. I still do. I was very lucky. They didn't give up. A lot of parents would have given up, right? But they didn't. The school didn't give up. They gave me opportunities. They channeled me. And luckily, I found two things. I found sport. Sport, played every single sport you can imagine. I was in every single team because it was a way to just like disconnect from the world, connect with something in front of me, and not have to take in all this emotion that I was feeling. Because I have this like very heightened visual mind. So if I'm around too many people, there's too much energy coming at me and I can't cope with it. And if there's too much emotion, I can't cope with it. And if there's too much color, mark, shape, it's too much. So sport's great because sport's about going zhoop,
yes, it's boom. More a distraction as well to all these
right.
emotions. And
exactly. And so anyway, that helped me a lot. And then I found art, I found painting, and that was it. I just painted forever.
Wonderful. I mean, we sometimes what you said about the childhood is amazing, but sometimes these emotions, they were the purest, and the bigger we get, the stronger we get. It's kind of like we disconnect from these pure emotions that we used to have, because you, as a child, you were pure, and that's why the feelings were so high, because you can sense each and every. Yeah. It's like a very strong receiver, you know, and the signals, you can see them.
That's the problem. I'm still like that.
So you want to go back to them all the time to sense. I go back in my memory to the moments where I used to feel these vibes. I used to feel like it's very clear for me that person who he is. Yeah. That's great. House. I mean, when I was a child, but then you're just like, okay, that's weird. So I need to, study and go and do sports and go with the normal life, because you need to function. Yeah. So you start to like put things down, and also the family comes and say, "Oh, okay, I mean, he's not normal. Yeah. So let him be normal." And but
that's true. They do this.
They do this so that you can function. You can drive a car. You can talk to people in a normal. You can go attend a meeting, and all these things. It's very hard to keep a little bit. I think the balance is very important.
Yeah, I agree. Well, there's an interesting thing I learned, I don't know, 5-6 years ago, which is, so I sort of believe that, as you've just touched on there, we as the adult, okay, we're the child now, right? And as we're the adult, what we're doing is we're getting further and further away from our child, right? And it sounds simple, but that, I believe, is what causes 99% of the problems in our world, is the fact that the adult has become so far detached from their child that's all where all the problems lie. And it's great you're doing that. You're sort of regressing, reconnecting with your child. And there was one trick I learned, which was if you get a picture of yourself, age 3 or 4, you know, and you have it in your bedroom or somewhere in the house, it's important. And mine's a little black and white, old, you know, little thing. And I'm in my little school cap and my shorts, but my face is very dominant. And if you have that picture and you hang it on the wall, and every morning, you know how you have life affirmations and, you know, every morning you look at it and you say, that's who I'm doing it for. That's who I'm living for. It sounds so simple. But when you do it, there's this weird thing that happens because that child, you realize I am so far away from that child. And that it helps you over time get back and reconnect to that beauty, that essence.
And that child,
because we all get lost.
Yeah, exactly.
We all get lost on the way.
Child has a superpower. I mean,
that's a nice way to say it.
When I was a child, I used to understand, and I used to understand like these feelings, and I know, and I practiced a lot. Because my father was, you know, telling me these stories, and they were so powerful for me because you're pure and listening to these stories. But then I was fascinating about how much you can control with your mind and do and project and ask for something, and it happens. Yeah. And I start to use this as a child. I start to ask myself, okay, tomorrow I want to see this car, and then I see it. Yeah. And it happens. I was like, okay, I have superpowers because I believed in it. And I used to.
And you lose that belief.
And you lose that belief, but it's a superpower that we all have it as a childhood. Which is, I don't know, vibes, any energy that we attract and we understand, and we just like
and then a lot goes wrong on that journey and we forget. And it's really nice to try and have some vocation, and my vocation is about trying to remind us to connect to that child. And that's beautiful because when it happens, when someone does walk in my studio or an exhibition and they really connect with a painting, it's the most amazing feeling. It's amazing because you see them going from a 48-year-old, 60-year-old man or woman back to that child. And it's so beautiful when you see that happen.
Yes, I mean, I wanted to remember this word, retrospective collection, 25 years. So you take all the artwork that you've done and you go visit countries.
Yeah, so I had an 18-year retrospective, started at the Sacha Gallery in London, which was really cool. And I'm lucky because what I've done, which I touched on earlier, is I'm only doing 12 paintings every 2 years, a collection. And from those, I'm keeping 3, let's say, which means that after 30 years, which I've been painting for 30 years now, I've done 15 collections. And out of each one, I got 3 pieces. So I've got 45 pieces over a period of 30 years, which is amazing. Most artists don't have that. And I'm really lucky that I started from the beginning like that.
Doing that, yes.
Yeah. So that enables me to then be able to be approached by the museums, the institutions, etc., to put a retrospective together. Now, it's not all work owned by me. Some of it is borrowed from museums, institutions, and private owners who are happy to lend it back. Some of it's owned by me, and some of it's new work that's just come in, and you've got 1 or 2 commissions, odd commissions that have been lent back. And that creates the most beautiful collection it's actually going to, I was the youngest artist in history to be offered a 25-year retrospective.
Yes.
I think Picasso was 49, and I'm 47. But they've actually extended it into a 30-year retrospective, which is really cool because my first painting I ever did, only one, was 1996. And I'm obviously going to create something next year. So 1996 to 2025 will be a 30-year retrospective. That's wonderful. And it'll travel the world. I mean, you're looking at maybe somewhere between 35 and 40 countries. It'll take 4 years to go around the world, but it's so exciting. And it's such an honor to be able to do that, to see all my work together and to travel with it. Yeah, it's exciting, man.
Yes, of course, man. It's a beautiful journey, beautiful life. Yeah. I just want to ask you the last question. You've done the biggest painting in Corona, and it went to Guinness Book.
Yeah.
First, where do you keep this painting? Where is it now? And this is the painting you sold for $65 million?
Yeah, I mean, it was a hell of a journey. It was, I did a lot of, so basically COVID hit. I couldn't go anywhere. No one could, right? I have to paint, otherwise I'm impossible. So I had to paint, right? I spoke to Atlantis. I spoke to the then VP of Atlantis, and I said, "Hey, man, I've got this idea. What do you think?" And him being this very cool Vegas, he's a Vegas GM. He ran the MGM Grand in Vegas, and then he ran the Wynn for Steve Wynn, which is probably the #1 hotel in Vegas. And he's a very cool, progressive guy, you know, and he's a great, visionary. And he heard it and he's like, yeah, man, why not? It's like, we can't do anything with our ballroom. We can't use it at the moment. We don't know how long for. I love the idea. Let's do it and see what happens, right? Maybe nothing will happen, but maybe something will happen. And I think he believed in me, which was really nice. Like you say, every now and then you do need someone to believe in you. And it helps. It affirms things. So that was lovely. And I just laid out a canvas and it got, I mean, I've cut a long story short because it's a long story, right? But laid out a canvas, it got bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's like loads of canvases sort of patched together. And anyway, Guinness then approached and said, hey, because it got well known, right? It was all over the world. I think it became the largest social, philanthropic, artistic project in history, beating Facebook. So Facebook connected with 3.2 billion people. And this was 3.4 billion people, which is insane, right? So anyway, so whatever, it got really big and this thing got big. And then Guinness said, you could have a Guinness World Record here. So I was like, okay, because we really hadn't thought that far. Do you know what I mean? It was just like, no one's using the ballroom. Let's see what we can do. And let's see if we can raise some money for charities around the world and help, right? And let's see if we can reconnect the children of the world into this one beautiful thing. That was the concept, the idea, right? Anyway, and then Guinness said, look, we can't call it the largest painting in the world because it's not a painting. And this became interesting. I was like, oh, okay, fair enough. They said, at the moment, it's not a painting. It's canvas on the floor, which they were right? Okay. At the end of the day, you couldn't hang it up. You couldn't look at it. You couldn't, a lot of it was not in great condition. It'd been there 11 months. I painted for 11 months, 20 hours a day.
Wow.
For 11 months. I ruptured 2 discs in my spine. My pelvis came out of line on both axes, that way and that way, which popped my heel out from my heel, became completely disconnected from my ankle. Like that. My whole skeleton just was falling out. It was unbelievable. I was injecting myself with painkillers just to get through it. Anyway, and it was there for 11 months. We had like grand piano on it. We had the crane thing driving on top of it. We had like 150 kids at one point dancing on it. I wanted it to be this journey, right? I wanted it to be this thing that could connect the world rather than a painting. Anyway, so it was this sort of canvas on the floor, layers and layers of paint. And then Guinness said, look, this isn't the largest painting in the world, but it's the largest art canvas in the world. And that would be a cool thing. I was like, yeah, yes, that would be a cool thing. Thank you. Thank you. So anyway, it became that. That was cool. But then the hard bit started because then I had to then spend, 4 months, I think it was maybe. I had this thing finished on the floor, right? But it wasn't really a finished thing because a lot of it was pools of paint, was cracking, was the canvas was ripping, was falling apart, had holes in it because I wasn't doing it like a painting. I wasn't being precious, right? I was like just, so I had to then look into this thing and try and find the bits of it that I could then bring together and recreate where I could hang it on the wall so it could be viewed properly, like a painting normally, and we could sell it, benefiting the charities. That was actually the hardest part because it was like, I've seen something like this. Now I've got to go into it and find the bits that are salvageable and that will then tell a new story, which is the journey of humanity. And that's when it became, we hung it on this L-shaped wall at Atlantis. We built an entire structure where it was a journey and you walked along this wall and along this wall on a viewing platform. and you viewed the journey of humanity from the beginning through life to the end. And it's a beautiful story, the journey. Anyway, that it took 4 months to work it out, how it gets together, and then another month to hang it. And then obviously, you know, it came this beautiful moment when this guy put up his hand, and it was a huge amount of money going to different causes around the world. And that was a very overwhelming
it's amazing story.
That was an overwhelming feeling.
Definitely. I mean, you hurt yourself as well while painting.
I'm still suffering.
Yeah. Sasha, I mean, I enjoyed my time with you. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, man.
I have so many questions, but we can
talk forever. Right? We'll do an episode 2 in a few months.
Yes, thanks a lot. You're an amazing artist, and I love your work. I need to visit it.
Yeah, you're
your
welcome.
Studio.
Anytime. And thanks for your time. I really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. Thanks a lot, Sasha.
Thank you, man.